What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and finally I'm able to bring you the profile that a lot of you have been requesting as a Blue Eyes variant. Today is the turn of Blue Eyes Centurion. That's right, a lot of you had been asking me to put this concoction together. I'd been working on it quite a lot, trying to get the right ratios together to make sure that it still maintained the Blue Eyes element and then use the Centurion as a supporting engine. In this particular style, what you are going to be using the Centurions for is the Centurions are going to become an additional starter, which is kind of what you get with the invoked version, but this one gives you that additional starter while giving you the theme and the feel of a synchro version that I've shown you previously as well. So what you're doing is you're basically merging those two kind of elements of the invoked, giving you Alistair as the normal summon. Now you've got the Centurion as your normal summon, and that then works you into more level 12 synchros. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. I'm going to dive headfirst into the profile, show you exactly what we've got, explain why we've got it, and give you as much of an understanding on the build and the ratios as possible so you know exactly what you're going to get yourself into if you want to be putting a build like this together. Massive shout out to Leo and of course to Terry. They are the local Centurion players, and I just kind of needed their ideas on how the Centurion engine worked in its best possible ways, and then I was able to kind of understand it in a bit more depth and detail when bringing it together with the Blue Eyes. So for the Blue Eyes engine, pretty standard on this one, double Blue Eyes White Dragon and a single Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. I still feel that having the Jet Dragon around is going to be more beneficial to you than a third Blue Eyes White Dragon, for the pure fact of that additional float back effect of the Jet Dragon can be very, very helpful, and especially that battle effect as well, that if your opponent just gets a little bit lapsical in concentration and forgets about the effect on Jet Dragon, that when it is in a battle, it can return a card to the from the field to back to the hand, can be massively damaging for them. More times than not, they're probably going to read it, but the idea is that what you're going to be using is you're going to be using the Centurion tuners in order to utilize your Blue Eyes more. So rather than going into level 9 synchros, which is still just as effective, you can go directly into a level 12, meaning you get to save one of your Spirit Dragons for later on in the grind game, and then you can work your way into other synchro plays as well. And then, of course, for your main starter of the deck, you're going to be going with your triple Sage and then, of course, your triple Maiden. Now, the idea is what you want to be doing in this deck is you want to be starting off with your Centurion monster, the Premier. Then when you start off with this one, this is the one that's going to start baiting out hand traps and interactions. Straight away, if your opponent doesn't know what you're on, they're going to think you're on Centurion and you go, right, okay, well, Premier is a pretty good target to hit, negate, and stop going off. From that point on, you just go into the Link 1 Blue Eyes, search out your Mausoleum, and then hopefully you've opened up another starter in the form of the Sage, and that's when you're going to be able to build your plays further forward. You can, of course, play Master if you want to, but I felt that Master was the best kind of target to be searching off of the back of Wishes once you'd already gone for a Sage, because if you didn't have a level 1 Light Tuner in the graveyard already, Master didn't really have the same effect. Like, you might as well just be normal summoning Maiden and working it that way. Speaking of which, of course, triple Wishes, the idea is, and I've said this in many a time, that your Maiden works you into True Light works you into Wishes, and of course Sage works you into Maiden. So the whole kind of bridge, or the whole kind of development is supposed to go from Sage to Maiden to True Light to Wishes. So if at any point you can already hard open up one of those different avenues, less so the True Light, but if you can already hard open up a Maiden, it means that your Sage can become a hand trap bait. It means if your opponent ashes it, imperms, veils it, or stops it in any way whatsoever, as long as it doesn't leave the board, you'll still be able to continue to make your plays. The exact same thing can be said for Wishes. If your opponent stops your True Light setting it, you still have the Wishes to fall back on. It also means that if you hard open up the Wishes, it means that the True Light can stay on the board, and it means you don't need to use its effect as early, and it also allows you to save it, so that when you get to the end of the turn, you go, right, well, do I want to bring back Blue Eyes and then Maiden to make a synchro level 9, or do I actually feel that I've got enough board presence that I can just use True Light to set either Raw to extend into a Blue Eyes, or I can use True Light in order to set me the Majesty that I might not have already gotten off of the back of the Wishes. So you just have so many different alternatives, which is what makes the Blue Eyes so incredibly consistent. And then, of course, for the standard, 1 Mausoleum, 1 Raw, and then, of course, the 1 Majesty. Now onto the Centurion engine. Now I've kind of kept this at a base minimum. You can kind of flip it and do it the other way around, but the idea is, quite like with the invoked engine, you need to start off with your Alistair, because your additional normal summon is for a level 1 Light Tuner. So you can't start with a Sage and then go with a Premier. You have to go with Premier first, which is why you're going to want to max out on the Premier. This is the main one you're going to want to go to for your Centurions. Now the reason that this is a bridge is the fact that it's a level 4 or lower Spellcaster or Dragon. In this case, this is a Spellcaster. tuner. So when this card is a continuous track card, level 5 or higher Centurion monsters you control cannot be destroyed by destroyed by card effect. You can only use each of the following effects Premier once per turn. If this card is normal or special, you get to add a Centurion card from the deck to the hand except itself. But you can't special summon Premier for the rest of the turn. That means that when you put it into the spell and trap zone as a continuous trap card, you can't summon it, which is absolutely fine because you're going to want to save that for during your opponent's turn anyway. So during the main phase, if this card is a continuous trap card, you get to special summon it. Now, the card you're going to want to search off the back of this, ideally, you can search out your Centurion Gargoyle, as this is one of the ones that can summon itself for free by sending a face-up Centurion card you control to the graveyard. The big bridge that you'll have with the Blue Eyes cards is through Ancient Fairy Dragon, because you'll destroy your own Mausoleum, you'll get your stand-up Centurion. Straight away, this is inactive, but you also have the ability to discard this to then search out any other Centurion monster, or place a Centurion monster into your spell and trap zone. So you've got loads of different ways you can kind of push your plays further forward. The other Centurion card that you can search for the back of the Premier, of course, will be your Wake Up Centurion. Now, this can get a little bit awkward depending on what you're trying to achieve, but the idea behind this one is if a monster is face-up in your spell and trap zone, you get to declare a level between 4 or 8. You special summon a Centurion Pyro Dark Attack 0, Defense 0 token with the declared level, but it can't be used as fusion or links. And then during your main phase, you can banish this card from the graveyard to send a Centurion card from the deck to the graveyard, except itself. Now, the idea is that off the back of the Premier, if your opponent then just, I don't know, flips a card that stops you going into link monsters, or they flip something that stops you getting into a spell card, getting the Premier off the board, at least you still have Wake Up Centurion to be activated to spawn you that token, which then opens up the door to Synchro level 8s if you want to go down that route. But in this particular version, you'll be going for Synchro level 12s. It's just another one of them nice one-off options. If you hard open it, it still gives you that ability to extend that little bit further should you want to. You can cut this out and make the engine incredibly small, because what you'd just do is you'd play the one stand-up Centurion, which is your bridge from the Ancient Fairy Dragon. You play the 3 Primera, which is your starter. Then you've got your 1 Gargoyle as your extender. And then the other Onus Centurion that we play is the 1 Archery. Now, the reason that we play this one is that this is a Dragon level 4 or lower, so this can also be your way into the the Blue Eyes Link 1. Now, this one is if you control, if this card would be used as Synchro material, you get to treat it as a non-tuner, which sometimes can be useful, but more times than not, you're really going to be utilising it as a level 4 tuner. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If it is normal or special, and you have both an Embalar card and a Centurion card in your graveyard, which you won't do so much in this particular version, you get to draw a card. But the benefit of this one is that during the main phase, if this card is a continuous trap, you get to special summon it. So what that will give you the ability for is that your standard Centurion can put this into the spell and trap zone. You get to special summon it. That's now another level 4 tuner. It also is a dragon, so it can be utilized for seals as well. So it has a bit more of a bridge, which is why I'm not playing the Trudea, because the Trudea was a pyro, and I don't really, like, as good as it is to put it into the spell and trap zone to then special summon it and increase its level by 4, because I'm not playing any Blue Eyes tuners, like, the best it would allow me to do would be use it as overlay material and make a rank 8, which in this version I'm not playing any rank 8s. So if you wanted to play a Centurion version and play some rank 8s, then Trudea would definitely be going in. For me, I've tried to keep this engine as minimal as possible, which is why there's no Embalar or Oath, because we're also not playing the level 8 Synchro for the Centurions. There is another way that if you start adding in more Bestials, you can start opening up the door to more level 10 Synchros. But again, the reason I've kind of stayed away from that is I feel that if you wanted to play Centurions and produce level 10 Synchros, you're probably just going to play Centurion Bestial. You're not really going to be worrying so much about Centurion Blue Eyes. So what you're going to get the best benefit out of if you're playing Centurion Blue Eyes is the ability to spawn out more level 12 Synchros. You'll see that in the extra deck, the amount of options you have that you can utilize and abuse in this particular deck, and that will give you something to work off the back of. So that's it for like the main kind of engine pieces. Like I said, the best engines for Blue Eyes that can really help it in some situations will be an engine that can be an additional normal summon that bridges into the Link monster and then works its way, or other level 1 tuners such as the Buster Blader engine, which become level 1 tuners or are level 1 tuners that are lights. It can also be searched off for wishes. So for the non-engine hand traps, pretty standard on this one. Triple Ash, Triple Droll, format specific, but I do definitely feel that when we're going into the next format, or the format post Maze and Master, which this is coming out on the day of the official release, there's going to be a lot of possible Ryziel players that are going to be playing Ascended 7 and of course the brand new 7th Tachyon, which are all search cards. So you're going to want to hit them with draw as early as possible, and I feel that draw is now going to become a main deck staple. I've got 2 Ghost Ogre. Again, this is one of them that is a format or environment specific card. This is actually really good in the Blue Eyes matchup. It can still put in a bit of work in some of the other matchups as well if you time it correctly. But ideally than that, you can probably sub this out. This can become your Perulias, your Fluoroses, Meowist, depending on what else you want, or even more Board Breakers or Bestials. You have flexibility, so do not let this be an exact list unless it works for your environment and your playstyle. You can also consider stuff like Crossout Designator, but like I said, the one good thing about the Blue Eyes one is it has the ability to eat a couple of multiple, it can eat a few hand traps because it has so many consistency cards to let them keep going, that your Centurion, or in the Alistair Invoker example, there's such good normal summons that straight away scream at your opponent to say this is a dangerous card, you need to hit it with a hand trap. If they don't hit with a hand trap, either they're thinking so many steps ahead that they feel that hand trapping something else later on will be more effective for them, or they won't have a hand trap to interact. If they do have an hand trap to interact, or even if they have multiple, you can probably bet your bottom dollar is that they're going to interact with your Premier, or of course Alice the Invoker in that example, and then you're able to work a little bit more freely, knowing that you don't need to worry about an Ash Blossom, for example. And then, of course, we've got 2 Event Veilers, like Searchable Hand Trap. What more could you want? The baseline of Bestials right now of 1 Druid to 1 Magnemute. You can play more of this if you want to. It really is up to you. Like I said, it does open up Chaos Angel plays. It does also open up level 10 Synchro plays like Dispatter. And it can also open up stuff if you do play a Dark Tuner in the form of... Going back a little bit, the Centurion Atria, this can also open up the door for you in order to get into the Gen X, which I really do like. The level 10 Gen X that requires a Dark Tuner. I think it's really kind of cool. And then pretty much triple Infinite Impermanence, and I decided to go with triple Forbidden Droplet. Just because you're putting Centurion cards into the spell and trap zones, you're kind of making sure you're maintaining a bit of board presence. But honestly, this can become Book of Eclipses, it can become Crossout Designators, they can become the Bureaus if you want to go down that way as well. You have a little bit of flex spots, which is what's so nice about the Centurion engine, is technically, if you wanted to, you could play Centurion Bestial Blue Eyes. I feel that it could get a little bit much, but... the fact of the matter is the Centurion package is like 7 cards at base minimum, and then you can kind of work away from there. So moving on to the extra deck, I'm going to show you the staples that pretty much go in all Blue Eyes builds. So your 1 Tyrant and the 1 Neo, pretty stand on that one. Then your 2 Spirit Advisor Blues and the 1 Hieratic Seals. Like, I don't feel that these would ever really change. They just kind of put so much work in the grind state and everything else in between. Then for the Synchro, so this is when you're going to get your standard Synchro plays of your 2 Spirit Dragons. The 1 Ancient Fairy Dragon, as this is going to be your main bridge from your Mausoleum to your stand-up Centurion. But then I also do like the idea of still playing Crystal Wing because it allows me to utilize the Ancient Fairy Dragon a little bit more. Yes, of course, with the Centurions, you can work your way into level 11 Synchros, but some of them are a little bit awkward unless you're going to be playing the Psychic End Punisher, which is rare or you probably don't even need to do in this build. So the idea behind this is your additional normal summon, whether it be a Sage, whether it be a Veiler, whether it be a Maiden, can then set you out of a Crystal Wing. And this is going to be before you've activated, like, stand up your Centurion or been able to utilize your Centurion monster coming from the spell and trap zone, which can then work its way into a level 12 Synchro. Then you've got a level 8 Dragon Synchro if you wanted to play some other options there off of the back of a Crimson Dragon and everything else in between. Now in this version, your other staple for the Synchro will of course be your Crimson Dragon, as this is going to be your bridge to get into your other Centurion monsters, as well as also being able to go into higher level, more stronger monsters. So that's 10 cards, unless I've miscounted, but that should be 10 cards for the extra deck. The final 5 cards then come down to what you have available to you. So I'll start off with the first card that you should probably be playing if you have it, and that is your Stardust Surf Dragon. If you don't have this, the next best, cheapest alternative will be your Azure Dragon. So this is an either or, not a both. You basically play the Divine Dragon if it gets a reprint in an upcoming Stampede, or you play it if you've been able to pick it up cheaply enough. If you don't have this and you still want the protection effect, the next best thing to do would be go for your Azure Eyes, but you can technically sub both of these out completely because you're not going to be relying on the Spirit Dragon so much. If anything, you want to make sure that in this version, your Spirit Dragon is tagging out into a Crimson Dragon, because the Crimson Dragon is not going to be staying on the board long whatsoever. If you do go into an Ancient Fairy Dragon, again, you're going to be turning it into a Crystal Wing, so you don't really care about its destruction effect. So these are 2 completely flexible options. Everything else I'm going to be showing you from this point on is completely flexible. They kind of come down to what you have access to, what you like, and what ones you want to play. So for the final 5 cards, you can pretty much choose from a selection of these cards. Now, I do advise you to play the Auxiliar and I do advise you to play the La Guitar, because obviously being able to play both of these are your Centurion bridges, your Centurion cards. This is your level 12 Dragon Synchro as well. And the best thing about this one is face-up cards in your spell and trap zone cannot be destroyed by card effects, meaning it makes your True Light even harder for your opponent to deal with. Because remember, True Light will only trigger to destroy your board if it is sent from the field to the graveyard. So if they Cosmic Cyclone it, if they return it to the hand, it's going to get banished, or it's going to return to the hand or go back to the deck. It won't be able to trigger to destroy your board. So this makes it a little bit more trickier for your opponent to deal with it. On top of that as well, if this card is special summoned, you get to add a Centurion card from the deck to the hand. And then during the end phase, you get to place one of your non-synchro Centurion monsters that is banished or in the graveyard into the spell and trap zone. So that's going to give you the ability to float back during your opponent's turn. Because we're only playing the tuners of the Centurions, you can use their continuous trap card effects to summon them. And with stand-up Centurion in play, you can then instantly synchro summon with a Blue Eyes, for example, plus a Centurion. And that will then get you into your Crimson Dragon. With obviously an Auxiliar already face up on the field, the Crimson Dragon can then tag itself out, and that's when you're going to get another level 12 dragon, which can be very, very helpful. So the other kind of target, so let's say we go with these two, right? So you've got 3 flex spots after these two. So the other flex spots are just going to be your level 12 targets. So you've got your Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon if you want to go down that route. You've got your Cosmic Blazar Dragon. You've got the Crystal Clear Wing over Synchro Dragon. I just think this is like a really kind of cool level 12 option. You don't have to play it, like pretty much all of these do a relatively same but slightly different job. So this is just kind of like alternative options you can play around with. And then the other kind of targets that I play off of the back of Spirit Dragon that are options for you. You don't have to play them, because I feel that if you want to use in your Spirit Dragon to get you into your level 12s more consistently, you won't play these. But I still feel these are like really kind of cool options to utilize. And that's your Moonlight Dragon and the Lightstorm Dragon as well. So to deal with back row and then to deal with any kind of additional front row monster to be able to return them to the hand. So the last card I want to show you is just basically a funny level 12 that you can actually hard summon in this particular build. And this one's more so if you burn through your hand resource or if you set all of your cards because you've opened up Forbidden Droplet. And the last one is the Super Heavy Samurai Brave. Now what I like about this one is it can attack while in face-up defense, so it becomes a nice little 4K boss monster. It's nice and generic and easy to make. You just need a level 8 and a level 4, or like any way to make a level 12, which is easy in this particular build. And then if this Super Heavy Samurai monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to destroy another Super Heavy Samurai card you control instead. So if you wanted to play a very small Super Heavy Samurai engine in a Blue Eyes build, maybe you could do that. But its main effect, which is where it gets really, really funny, is once per turn, if your opponent activates a spell or trap or an trap card or effect, except during a damage state, you get to draw it until you have 3 cards in the hand. Now, obviously, this is not a mainstay staple, which is why it's not part of the main block of 15 or like a little bit extra that I was showing you. This is just one of them ones that you're like, oh, I've got this lying around. I might try this out. This might be really fun to have a 4K defender my opponent can't deal with. And then if my opponent doesn't know about second effect, they try and activate a spell card. I go, okay, cool, draw 3. And because you're playing so many hand traps, you're like, okay, cool, draw into a Veiler, a Ghost Ogre, and an Ash. So it can be kind of cool. It's one of them ones that if you're going to be setting most of your cards and leaving them on the board as a more presence than in your hand, it can be very, very helpful. It can also be very helpful if you decide to shotgun your hand traps early doors to get them out of your hand, and then you go, they activate a spell, Super Heavy Samurai, draw 3 more cards. So it basically just lets you replenish a bit of your resource, and I thought it was kind of like a fun option to show around, because it basically is the same as the Centurion, where they're basically just level 12 generics. Like, they don't need a specific dragon, they don't need a specific tuner, it just lets you summon them as a level 12. So I thought they were kind of cool options. And that is pretty much it for the entire profile. I hope I've given you as much information as possible, giving you a breakdown behind the ratios, the choices behind this build. Apologies that it did take so long to kind of get there, but I wanted to make sure that I had the understanding correctly and that I was making sure that the bridges and everything else that I was looking for worked correctly in the way that I wanted to present them, rather than just chucking it all together and saying, there you go. So this is kind of like proof in the pudding that the deck does work. I like that it moves you more towards the level 12 synchros. I feel that you can have a way that just turbos out Spirit Dragons. We all know there's a triple Spirit Dragon combo. And then it's quite nice to say, okay, well, rather than going to Spirit Dragon, I can actually just go straight to the level 12s in the generic ones of Crimson Dragon, Auxiliar, and of course your Centurion at La Guitar as well. Anyway, that is it for the entire profile. Any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them as always. But for now, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.